So you were asking about the our event. Yeah, we did a summit. Really interesting to me. We had, I think our final numbers were either 150 or 130 people registered for the summit. And at any one time, we had 12 to 15 people on, which I guess that's average for what's out there. The person running the summit, I asked her, like what kind of number she sees. And she says that that's very, 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 very typical for what she sees. The content that was really interesting. So I did a lot of the interviewing. I had, so when people come into our training, they join black belt speaker training where they learn how to write their 1 hour, the mindset and the delivery, and then they can escalate to what's called unlimited. And then they get more advanced training. They get to learn how to run events, put together events, sell at events, do back of room sales, as well as other stuff. So we'd like to give our unlimited stage time. So we'd let some of our unlimiteds do interviewing, and my team did. And then our guests were people who applied. So some of our guests, people I'd never met, never heard of, some of my unlimited, some of my black belts, my team. And I hope this lands right. I don't want this to land wrong, but there was a marked difference between the people who were on the summit that came through our program and people who hadn't. Like the ones who hadn't, by and large, were very like, this is what I do, and this is what I do, and and here's how you do the thing, and and the people that came through my program were like, let me tell you a story. And they were animated, they were exciting, and their delivery was great. And it was really fascinating to me. The average speaker, just like for lack of a better phrase, they want to teach, but not in a great way. They want to teach through telling you what to do and all that. It's just whack. It's not great. So the interesting thing for me though was, so it was Friday, Saturday. I actually left Saturday feeling more inspired after listening to the guests, even the ones that weren't as entertaining or captivating. I left the summit feeling more inspired about my business and what we were doing. And the context of the summit was the 3Ms, the magnetized mentorship and the methodology. And I was like, for some of the challenges of having a business, there's pros out there that can help me because we're growing a coaching company. So it was really great. It was really awesome. So where did you just get back from again? You were where?
Thanks for sharing about the event this past weekend.
Thanks, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, most certainly. I know I have several partners that I do events with as well that have been reporting kind of some drawbacks in engagement as well with virtual events of the sort. It's kind of like record small events for their 10, 12 plus years experience. So I think it's probably like an industry trend. I could be wrong, but I've seen and talked to several people who are seeing a similar trend in their business, whether they've gone from having 1,000 people on to 500 people down to 100 people, or they went from 100 to 50 or 10, whatever. But I think I've generally been hearing like these are the smallest events that I've had in a long time from several people.
Really? Well, I mean, to be fair, this was a summit, so we didn't charge for it. And, a summit is a bunch of speakers. So I typically think you see summit show up late. So we do a virtual event later this month. That better have, next month, that better have really good show up though. So where did you say you're just traveling back from Nairobi?
Yeah, I got back from Nairobi, Kenya, the capital of Kenya, in East Africa. So I was there for a few weeks visiting a girl that I'm dating, and it was nice. My second time there. I went there once in 2016. I know you're into personal development, so you'll know who Tony Robbins is.
Yeah,
with the group organized by Tony Robbins, like 80 of us, and we had like this big adventure trip back in 2016. And then it was interesting going back now in 2025, 9 years later, and really seeing it from like the local perspective. So Nairobi's actually grown tremendously as a city. Like big buildings have popped up in the last 5 years. And it's actually remarkably modern for like the image I have in my mind of, Africa and what I remember from 2016.
Is there a lot of Chinese money in Nairobi? Do you know? Like I've gone to Uganda a lot, and you go over there and you'll see construction stuff. It's all in Chinese on the construction equipment.
Chinese,
and they're like,
yes. Yeah.
They're paying.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're paying like a lot of money to build out infrastructure where they're going to start owning stuff. And so people think it could be a threat to us in the States because of what can happen with their control. But anyway, so on a more fun part, you're visiting your girlfriend. You met her where?
We actually met on Necker Island earlier this year.
No way. Whose mastermind were you at on Necker Island?
It's called the Maverick 1000 group, hosted by Yannick Silver. He's been running it now 15 years, I believe. Or I think this next coming year will be his 15th annual event that he hosts on Necker Island. He does these adventure trips for entrepreneurs around interesting places in the world.
That is so cool.
But I appreciate the comment that you made about like national security threat. I actually was in the military. I was a naval officer, and I went to the Naval Academy. So I very much have my eye on those sort of things when I travel. I can't help but notice that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, that's been a part of China's strategy for many years, is going into neighboring countries and building infrastructure like airports and highways and that sort of thing, and doing it for quote unquote free. But of course, there's control and barter and all sorts of things that are going on. So it's interesting. I find it because I've actually invested the last 3 months, just over 3 months, like traveling around the world for the most part. And so I've been, various parts of the world recently, and to see how Western influence, Eastern influence, and some of these geopolitical things are kind of unfolding.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Dude, you're so humble. I didn't know you went to the Naval Academy. I should probably, let me read your bio for everyone that's here. This is Rudy Rodriguez, a maverick entrepreneur, former naval aviator, and the mastermind sales guy. He's made over 50 million in mastermind enrollments because he does masterminds change lives. He's CEO of Wingman, a high-ticket mastermind sales agency, and host of the High Profit Event Show. He's helped 10,000 plus entrepreneurs invest in the education, support, and community they need to scale and succeed. Before business, Rudy flew the P-3 Orion, tracking submarines, running high-stakes missions, and surviving 10-hour flights on nothing but caffeine and questionable in-flight meals. That's great. So do you only sell masterminds, or do you do...
We didn't have in-flight meals. That was a joke. Yeah.
Good. In-flight meals? Question. So did you guys... do you guys only sell masterminds, or do you sell all kinds of... help all kinds of people sell at events?
Yeah, that's a good clarifying point. I want to make sure to clarify the point you made in the bio. So as an agency, I've partnered with dozens of event leaders and experts who have mastermind programs to provide a done-for-you service where we have put over 50 million points on the board for them, and resulting in over 10,000 people enrolling into their programs in the last 10 years. We've been doing this since 2015. And so I focus specifically on mastermind coaching programs, and have kind of shied away from other opportunities like e-commerce and, other high ticket type of offers, not because we can't, but rather because it's not congruent with my mission. Right. And I know it kind of gets into the theme of your podcast here around, I think the third piece is like mentorship.
Yeah.
So here's a short background on it, and I'll kind of connect the dots here. I feel super blessed and lucky to be born in this country, United States of America, to two loving parents. I didn't have to deal with any physical violence at home. I didn't have any drug issues or anything of the sort. So, I had a roof over my head and food in my belly and parents that love me. So, thank God for that. And I didn't necessarily have any like specific advantages outside of that. Like, neither of my parents had graduated from high school. My mother immigrated from a foreign country. I didn't know any business people in my life. And it was because of mentors, initially, teachers, high school counselors, coaches. Eventually, when I could afford it, I had some money, started actually paying for mentorship, that I feel like I've been able to live, for me, my American dream, where I've been able to travel the world, get a degree, become a pilot, just do so many things. And for me, mentorship is one of the things I'm most passionate about, right? This idea of like, hey, with the right teacher, the right mentor, anything is possible. And so when I founded Wingman, I did it with the mission of creating a world where every single human being who is seeking it, who wants it, who has a desire in their heart, a vision for their life that's bigger than themselves, that they get access to a mentor through a coaching program, to a mastermind that could improve their lives, their businesses, and their lives. Mm-hmm. And I really thought long and hard. I was like, well, how in the world can I create a world where everybody who looking for it can get access to it? It's like, well, I'm not going to be the next Tony Robbins. I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins, but I can partner with people who do want to be the next Tony Robbins. And I can provide a valuable world-class service doing things that either they don't want to do or that's just not their skill set, and do it at a level of partnership where it's a win-win. And so because of that, being able to partner with dozens of people, they said enroll over 10,000 participants and account for over 50 million, not in theory, but like we've tracked it. Like, these are sales that cash we put in the bank account for our partners. And that's been the way of fulfilling this mission of like, this is how I'm creating a world where every human being gets access to it, because I get to partner with reputable leaders, maybe like yourself, Jase, and other people in our circles who really actually care about people and want to leave people better off than they were when they found them. And unfortunately, I have to say that with a big caveat, because my 10 years of experience has shown me that unfortunately, not everybody actually cares about the people they're serving. I've been in too many conversations or too many rooms where people are just like, hey, how do we make more money? How do we, sell them something more? But really just looking at people as a transaction and not actually caring for their well-being. And
totally.
Nothing that I'm going to say it, I hope this is okay to say it, but pisses me off more than hearing that. Because it's unfortunate, but it only takes a few people who think that way, who have big names or big brands, that ended up putting a bad taste in people's mouths. And I freaking hate that, man. So I'm on a mission, on a vendetta to not necessarily to like call those people out, because where focus goes, energy flows, but rather to find the good guys and gals and get behind them and help them help more people. And I think we focus on that, then the other people, eventually the market wakes up and puts them aside and goes with where people are being served. So there's my rant. That's my whole podcast interview. I gave you the best I could in 2 minutes.
So, it's funny. I met with Les Brown years ago, and we were talking about me running his company, and I brought in this guy, and we're sitting down and we're around the table and we're talking about like the vision and what we want to create. And I had another guy with me, and Les sits back and he goes, you two are the first people I've ever met with who actually talked about making a difference for the people in the room. Like so many of the speakers out there, I don't know who he was talking to back then, but so many people that sell from stage don't. Selling from stage is such an easy access to a lot of money really fast, and a lot of people take their eye off what's important. So I want to back up, though. I want to ask you about your path. How did you go from a kid with two parents, neither one of whom went to college, to getting into the Naval Academy? That is a huge, huge deal. Like, to me, I have a lot of respect for that and a little bit of envy. My dad was a POW in Vietnam, and he's like, I could have got you in the military. I did not have the discipline or the grades or the physical fitness. And I don't mean, how did you get in? I mean, like, what empowered you as a kid to do that? That's a big deal.
I appreciate it, man. And much respect to your father as a POW. I had just the blessing at the academy to actually get to meet many people who were POWs and to hear their stories. And and I actually, definitely not a comparison, but one of the best trainings I got to do in the Navy was, we call Search and Legion Rescue and Escape School. It's a simulation of what do you do if your plane gets shot down behind enemy lines, like a week simulation of being a POW. And it was the best training that we got. And of course, it's nothing near the real thing. Nothing can ever actually be the real thing. But I just have so much respect. When I even hear somebody who had to go through that, that is probably, I can't imagine a more difficult thing to go through as a human being, to be separated from your family and to not know from one day to the next what the heck's going to happen to you, but more importantly, what's going to happen to the men and women next to you. The mind games and the physical games that were, it's mad respect to your father, man, and to you for you and your family who, had to go through that from afar.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Did they drop you off or did they parachute you in for yours?
It's not a drop off or a parachute. It was we took a bus kind of into the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of like, hey, this is where you start. I mean, that's a story. I'm sure that I could tell tons of stories about that. But
I'll tell you great stories. But the reason I asked when you're sharing that, it reminded me of a story my dad would tell when he was parachuting down, like he was near some village, and he's hearing these little like pop, tap, tap, pop, and it was the villagers shooting at him, and it was the bullets breaking the sound barrier as they went past him. Luckily, he didn't get shot. Like anyway, so back to you. How did you get it? Tell me about your military service. Like how you got out. Like, what inspired it? And then, like yeah.
And one more thing I mentioned just on that line of POWs. Specifically, one person I got to meet was John McCain, the late John McCain. His son Jack McCain, who was in one company below our company. He was 1 year behind me, one floor below me, and we would eat at adjacent tables, so he would come visit us for lunch on occasion. And it's like these legends that we got to like have lunch with. I mean, your dad is a legend, right? So you got to know him first and foremost, but I had never met anybody who'd actually been through that before. To answer your question about the academy, here's the short of it. The short of it is when I was 5 or 6 years old, I wanted to be an astronaut. You asked a kid what they want to be when they grow up. I said be an astronaut. So when it came time for high school and people ask you, hey, what are you going to do in your career and all that sort of thing? I say, well, what do I need to do to be an astronaut? And so the path that was explained to me was, well, the astronauts historically have gone to a service academy, got an engineering degree, became pilots, and went to flight school or test pilot school, eventually worked their way to NASA, et cetera. So it was like, I have no idea how to do any of that. I don't know anybody who's done any of that. But what's the first step? Right. The first step was go to a service academy. I didn't even know what service academies were when I was a freshman. Thankfully, one of my good friends at the time in high school had an older brother who was at the Naval Academy, and he came home on his breaks. And I was over at my friend's house when he came over one day, and he was like, 21, 22-year-old dude, like super like jacked, strong dude. And it is a cool dude. Like in my eyes, to be like a freshman in high school, sophomore high school, and this guy comes out from the academy.
Yeah.
Like super big and strong and jack. I'm like, I want to be like that guy. And so I just, I applied. Sure, I had grades. I had a good high school counselor that sat me down and explained to me that if I wanted to do that, I need to get good grades. So we put together a plan, and I went forward and got straight A's from that point forward, because I knew I associated in my mind that I need to get straight A's to get to the academy. Before that, I didn't really care. I had A's, B's, C's. I wasn't really playing the game. But once linked in my mind by a mentor, when he explained to me why it was important and I got associated with it, then I was like, okay, then if I need to have the best shot possible, I need to go for the grades, right? So that's where I started actually paying attention in school. It also helped that I was, hanging out with friends that were also starting to do well in school. So it just my peer group started to change and started to care.
I think those are, like, if I could jump in, I think those are two such critical pieces for people having success in life. And I'll go second first. Getting yourself around people who are doing better. Like, I remember just like hanging out with people years ago who, like, I'd have a good weekend. It was like $40,000 and they'd be like, oh yeah, I just made 200,000 today. I'm like, what? And like, when I hang around with people who are multimillionaires, they're like, oh yeah, this, and that conversation becomes normal. And when I hang around with people who aren't making a lot of money, like, oh yeah, I just got a job for $15 an hour, $20 an hour. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds good. It makes such a difference. And then the first thing you said was that it became important to you. Something was at stake. And I'm a big believer, people do not step up and up their game just naturally. Something has to be at stake, which, by the way, I think is part of the reason that capitalism works. Something's at stake. So it causes people to step up. So thanks for letting me jump in there.
Yeah, for sure, man. The cool thing about service academies, and I wasn't intending for this to be a promotion for the military of any sort, but I really appreciate that they look for more than academics. They really look for people who are well-rounded, have different things going on. And they kind of like repel people who are just really smart, but like can't fight their way out of a paper bag kind of thing. And it was tough to get in, but it was even tougher to get through. I went from being a big fish in my little pond to being a really small fish in a big pond when I got there. I mean, it was really, really tough. Mostly probably I would say emotionally, mentally, kind of that adjustment of being away from home, not knowing anybody initially. Academics were rough. It was a lot of credits on top of hazing that they do there and extracurriculars that were required. And there's just a lot. It was a lot for me specifically. I just wasn't used to that level of work that was required. And then I also was silly enough to choose an engineering major because that's what I was supposed to do. And that's hard on top of, more homework on top of everything else. So, but it's one of those experiences where I look back now at those 4 years and throwing the hat in the air, as hard as it was very fulfilling.
I bet.
Tossing it up in the air and just being like, I'm done with this, but also at the same time, like, man, that was worth it. That was hard. That was really hard, and it was really worth it. And it's a great place to be from, right? A lot of great stories to tell, but in the moment, there were so many moments, not just for me, but several of my friends there were like, all right, are we going to quit today? Are we going to quit this week? Right? Like, or am I going to get kicked out? Am I not good enough? Am I not going to make the cut? It was a crucible of sorts, either mentally, physically, emotionally, or a combination of those throughout the period of time. But
wow.
But yeah,
what was your sport in high school? Yeah, you had to be good at sports too, right?
I don't know if you have to be good, but they look for people who are involved in sports, have like a signal for, will they do things outside of academics? But I played football, middle school and high school. And then I ran cross country my senior year in high school because at that point I knew I wanted to go to the academy. And I was in football shape. I was not in military academy, Navy academy running shape. I couldn't run more than 100 meters at a time. So when I joined cross country, I was like, okay, now I'm going to learn to run. So I did, and it helped a ton.
That's cool. So how do you go from Naval Academy, flying airplanes, to helping people create more sales at their event?
Yeah, I know, it's kind of crazy. Necessity is the mother of invention. I'm sure you've heard the term. So in 2014, I was on my second deployment out of Okinawa, Japan, with my squadron patrolling the East China Sea. And I got some information saying that, the short version of it is I didn't pass the board I needed to pass to become the commander of my airframe. So I had the option to go up for another review, like a performance board review, or I could leave voluntarily. And I chose to leave voluntarily at that point. And I was super great. It was unexpected. I wasn't planning on it, but I was super lucky in the sense where I got to leave basically at the high, like, the end of my second deployment. And I didn't know if I was going to get to keep flying anyways from there. I didn't really want to go to DC and get some kind of embassy job. That thing. Honestly, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was in my mind for a while. That's another story. But I get the notice saying, hey, you got 4 months left. And so that inspired me. That inspired me to figure out what I was going to do next. I didn't want to go to corporate and get a 6-figure or, corporate job. I wanted to pursue that dream, that thing I read about when I read the book Think and Grow Rich. I got a lot of stories on that regard, but I left the Navy, didn't have a job lined up per se, but I did have a mentor. Actually, a mentor that I was paying. I was taking the last money that I had from my time in the Navy, and I was paying for my first mentor. And that mentor was running an online business, and he had a big database of customers, but he didn't have a mentorship program yet, and he wanted to have a mentorship program. So I said, hey, send me your leads. At this time, I had a business partner, so I was like, send us your leads, and we'll build it all out for you. All right, we'll figure it out, and we did. They sent us their leads, and we helped them scale from about $1.5 million of revenue that year to just over $7 million in annual revenues in just over 2 years. And when we did that for him, we realized that we developed a skill. Like we have a skill and identified a need in the market, and that we could duplicate that for other people. So then company, and then we went out and started to partner with other experts and leaders. And 10 years later, here we are.
Wow. So this podcast is, the context of this is to empower coaches to make the difference they were supposed to make. And we really look at how do you magnetize people to you? How do you set up methodology that works? How do you be the right mentorship? So what's your secret sauce for helping people? I mean, that's a 700% increase. More impressively, that's a $6 million increase. What's the secret sauce? And as you answer this, if you think about, because we have different audiences here, we have I think we have the brand new coach who's just hoping, it's a dream, it's a hope. We have people who are full-time. Maybe they're making, I don't know, 100,000, 50 to 100,000. We have people like a couple 100,000, people $1 million up. For each one of them, or one answer for all, what's the secret sauce to scaling up like that?
Secret sauce. I would say the one thing that probably made the biggest difference for me at the time, and is it okay if I say the name of specific personal development course?
Oh, you can name, on this show, you can name anything you want. There's nothing. I just want to help people on this show. So name anything you want. Although I will say on my summit, someone got on there and I sell speaker training, and they were like, so-and-so is this great speaker trainer I work with. And I'm like, I'll bet you don't mention on a podcast you can. Yeah, and I'm not trying to get you to give away your stuff, and yet I'm also wanting you to give away the secret to the store.
Yeah, I have no problem sharing, because I think information is one thing. It's the application and the information that actually matters. I'll give any information. I don't like keeping any secret. I don't believe there are secrets, right? But one of my mentors, who became a father figure to me, recommended I do a program called the Landmark Forum. So I did that back in 2012. And
really,
a year before I left the Navy. And I would say that program, and then it wasn't just the forum. I did the forum and then their advanced course, and then went on to do their third course, which is called the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. But through that curriculum, I really got clear on the compelling vision that I had for my life and how I wanted to impact people. And I also got clear that where I was in that moment wasn't where I wanted to be. And all of a sudden, once I got that clarity, things that weren't who I wanted to be just started to fall off. Really started to change. My career changed. I don't think that's a coincidence, right? That I was going through that progression, and all of a sudden new opportunities were showing up. But the short of it is I just got super, super clear on the impact I wanted to have, the problems I wanted to solve. And I shifted my focus from my problems to helping other people at scale. And I just kept focused on that. I just kept focused on how can I help as many people as I possibly could. And that just inspired me. That inspired me to get up every day, the time, early in the day, exercise, work for 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and just keep doing the thing. Where I had a vision that was pulling me forward. I just had this faith and this vision. I just kept putting one foot in front of that, pulling forward. Before I knew it, just 3 years went by, and I went from I moved back in with my parents. I slept on their couch. I went from moving back in with my parents, sleeping on their couch, to qualifying for the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company within my first 3 years of business.
Wow.
But it was because I just focused on every day just getting up and asking myself, who can I help today? Who can I serve? How can we get better? Right? If I was $1 billion, I asked myself, if I was $1 billion company, what investments would I be making today? What people would I be hiring today? What decisions would I be making today? Right? I just kept coming from that future place, right? Where do I want to be? And then who do I need to be today to be there? Anyway, all this stuff is stuff I picked up from the Landmark Forum, right? This was kind of my takeaways from that. I also ended up putting everybody I was hiring through the Landmark Forum as well. So I kind of started to surround myself with people who were into personal development, and all of a sudden created this environment of accountability and vision and action. And we started measuring and tracking every single one of our activities, reporting on it every single day. And we just kept super detailed reporting what we were doing. And the saying goes, whatever you measure, you manage, and what you manage improves. So we literally just create a database of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands uh, of appointments and sales calls and all this. And we learned a ton from that, right? Learned a ton, a lot of IP from that we were able to take and start to develop systems and processes and people to replicate what we were doing.
By the way, the forum, I went to this one personal growth seminar, and then just by this weird fluke, I went to the forum 2 weeks later, and it was amazing. And I did all of their stuff as well. And it was through one of the forum's courses, the self-expression and leadership program, I got the vision I want to be in seminars, and that I pivoted to getting into this too. Yeah, I think for everyone, I think the forum, if there's one course you should take, I think it's the forum. Like it's such a great, and people, oh, there's other things like the forum. No, nothing is the forum but the forum. The forum is fantastic. Is it the be all end all? No, there's other courses, and it's fantastic. So I have a 3-day event coming up. What part of the things that you do to help people make more sales at their events? What's some of the strategies, tactics, mindsets coaches can use to fill up their event or to sell more at their events or to sell more one-on-one if you have a specialty in that?
Yeah, to answer your question about recommendations for your upcoming event, well, I'm going to first of all, I'm going to want to ask you questions, right? Because I want to seek to understand first and foremost. I'm assuming it's a 3-day event that you're running online.
Yeah. What do you think about people running 1-day and 2-day events? What's your thoughts?
Well, it just depends on what the intention or the outcome is. At the end of the day, it comes down to what is your outcome, what's your intention. So normally on a 3-day event, intention is to, if it's an enrollment event, obviously is to enroll them into give them a great experience enrollment in the program. If it's a 1-day event, I'm guessing it's some kind of preview to move them forward into something, but they're probably not going to have enough of an experience to go like in for a 1-year program with you. 2-day events, it's kind of in the middle. It depends. I don't like 2 days for enrollment purposes. I mean, 2 days are great for fulfillment, but I think like 2 days for me feels like just not quite enough. If my intention is to want to work with somebody at a very high level for an extended period of time, I feel like I need at least 2.5, if not 3 days.
Yes.
To really build the relationship properly, to build the trust properly, to get somebody to say, yeah, money is one thing, but more importantly, it's commitment. And more importantly, it's the decision to want to change their lives. Right?
Yeah.
The money just reflects that. That's all it is, right? So I think that time is required to build the trust and to build the commitment to someone to want to change your life. That's what I had to go through when I made my first, I think it was $25,000 investment for my first mentor. I don't think if it was a 1-day event, I would have done that. I don't think it was a 2-day event. I think it was like a full experience that gave me the confidence to be able to make that decision. So I don't know if I answered your question, but you're doing a 3-day event, correct?
Yeah. So what I want to share with the people listening, guys, if you're going to be selling into a 20K and up program, I think you need 3 days. And I've seen 2 days used to be the thing back in the day. I think it just because Saturday, Sunday, right? But 2 days, it just doesn't give you enough time for bigger sale. Because when a 3-day event, you usually make your offer day 2, and then your fast people buy, your impulse buyers buy, your fast decision makers get in, emotional buyers buy. You get the rest of day 2 to get sales. And then day 3, your logic people come in, and it gives your salespeople time to close the deals and get more in. So if you're selling high ticket, 3 days is where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. And that brings me to a point I would like to make that you were kind of asking, like, hey, what's a recommendation or a tip or strategy? I would say if I were to summarize it into like one thing, like the number one thing, I'm going to make several assumptions here. I'm going to make an assumption that who was listening to this, they know how to do a 3-day event. They've done one before. They know how to get people to their event. They're confident in what they're offering. They sold it before. I'm making a lot of assumptions in this. But I think, and maybe they've gone through your speaker training and they feel confident on stage and making an offer, right? So I'm going to make that assumption as well. I think the number one thing that works against people in this environment when they're doing an event, whether it's virtual or in person, especially if they have 50 people or more in the room, it's something I call it's called LODI, the law of diminishing intent. And Harvard actually did a study on this. You can look it up, Harvard Business Review. I think it was, actually, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. I'm trying to get the exact year, but the Harvard Business Review, if you look up the lifetime value of online leads, they'll find 2 studies. One was where they interviewed a bunch of companies, both B2B and B2C, to figure out, hey, on average, how quickly are companies and businesses responding to inquiries of people saying, I'm interested in your business. And they found that the vast majority of companies were waiting over 72 hours, maybe not responding at all. Very much small group of them were doing it under 72 hours, and very, 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 very small group were doing the same day or under an hour, like really small group. Then they did a secondary study on that. And what they were figuring out is, okay, what's the impact of that? What is the impact of this responsiveness? And what they figured out was waiting 24 hours, just 24 hours from when somebody raises their hand and says, I'm interested in what you have to offer, to having a meaningful conversation with them. Waiting 24 hours decreased the likelihood of a conversion by as much as 7 times. But it got more interesting. Waiting 72 hours or more decreased it by 60 times. It's like exponential. So,
Wow.
So here we look at a 3-day event, right? Similar, but different, but similar in the sense where you've done so much freaking work to promote and fill, get people there, change their life, get them into that container, into the state of belief that yes, they can have a different outcome, a different future. They can develop their skill, become a great speaking, whatever it is that you want to help them with. And there was
easy.
They believe it. You made your offer from stage, but now all of a sudden you have 20, 30% more of the room who are very interested, but you send them to the back of the room and maybe you have somebody, a volunteer there that helps them. Maybe you have family there. Maybe you have members of your coaching team, etc. But if you're not able to actually speak to everybody in a timely manner, and somebody that has proper skill set, that knows how to handle questions and interest and objections and actually move them forward into a committed decision, aka signing a contract, making a payment before they leave the container. If you don't do that, then every hour that goes by from them leaving your event is like, likelihood of them moving forward is just dropping off exponentially. So the problem solution, right, is this law of diminishing intent. How do we address that is, and this is where I've specialized in, is bringing a professional team and system in that can have those meaningful conversations before the event and during the event while they're there in the container. We can actually have meaningful conversations with 90% or more of the attendees and help them, assist them in getting to a meaningful yes or no. And we're okay with no's, right? We'd rather them say no to something so they can say yes to something else down the road. And come Monday morning when the event's over, we can go to the event host. In this case, maybe it would be you, and we can be like, hey man, this is the sales outcome from the weekend. You had 100 people here. We spoke to 90 of them. 30 of them secured a deposit. 15 of them had paid their balance in full. Here are all the contracts that are signed. Here are all the follow-up scheduled. This is where the payments are being collected. These people have already been scheduled for their onboarding session. There's no drop-off, right? Because the sale doesn't finish when they sign the contract or make a payment.
No, it does not.
No, it's a process, right? They got to get to that onboarding call. They have to get to that first win, right, in the program. Like, it's the process. So again, problem solution is law of diminishing intent. How do we solve that? By using a professional system and team to be able to do that for you so that you can focus on what you do best, which is promoting the event, holding the container event, speaking from the front of the room, and knowing that you have a team, a professional team, a wingman per se, that is going to take care of those details for you.
Yes. You guys, I would never run an event without a trained sales team and a process for that. I think a good sales team will double your sales easy, minimum, if not more than that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm just kind of stuck and stunned with the 60 minute, like the 7-fold in 24 hours and 60-fold or 60 times diminishment in 72 hours. That's just stunning to me. Like, and it makes me think, oh boy, I really need to get my processes better.
Yeah.
So, side note, you're involved with doing sales. Do you ever use a firm or Klarna or anything like that? Because we're looking at doing that for our next one. Instead of offering payment plans of our own, we're thinking about doing that. And for those of you guys listening, a firm or Klarna, the way it works is suppose your package is $20,000. Normally when people do pay in full, it'd be like 20,000 on pay in full or 25 on payments. And then the coaching company collects the payments. What a firm or Klarna does is it gets them approved at the pay in full price. And then they pick their interest rate and their payment length and their all of that with a firm. And the buyer sets up their own financing. And then a firm pays you some discount. They don't pay you the full 20,000, I don't believe. I think they pay you like say 18 or 17,000, and then they collect on the 20,000. They handle all that. You get a chunk of cash. You get less than a pay in full, but instead of having to wait and collect on someone who's making payments, you get cash now, and you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. So we're thinking about doing that at our next event. Do you have any experience with that? Any thoughts on that?
I don't have experience with those particular resources that you recommended, but I do have experience with financing from a third party, as well as the psychology of the pay in full versus the payment plan. By the way, I just put something in the chat there for your own resources. I was referencing that study that I shared.
Cool, thanks.
The short of it is, I'd recommend having a third party financing tool. I have a trusted resource that I use as well, and I recommend to our partners. Someone's been in the business for decades and very reliable. And I've also, unfortunately, come across third-party financing companies and resources that are not the most trustworthy. So I think that's one of the things you have to be the extremely cautious of, because you're talking about sensitive financial information that you're bringing somebody else in to handle on your behalf. And how they treat your customers will, just like a sales team, it will impact how the customers look at you, right? So I don't have experience with the ones that you're recommending, but I do recommend having a trusted resource. That being said, I am a huge fan of the psychology of the payment in full, and
yes,
setting your offer up such that it's a no-brainer for them to pay in full, and you give them ways so they can go about doing that, because it's one less decision that people have to make every single month, right? Because if they're on a payment plan, they're constantly evaluating, am I getting enough value in this program to justify my next payment? And don't get me wrong, there's not necessarily something that's wrong with that. That's not a bad thing, but I would rather somebody be thinking, how do I get the value that I've invested in this, and should I or should I not continue in this program?
As a coach, if I could jump in here, if anyone ever calls you up or sends an email that's really long with a list of everything you've done wrong, it's someone on payment plans who doesn't want to make their next payment. That conversation never happens with pay in fulls. And it never happens with someone on a payment plan who wants to make their next payment or has the money to make their next payment. I mean, everybody has the money if they'll just hustle their ass off. But that only happens, it's a big saver of a heartache a lot of times when you can do pay in fulls, for sure. Sorry, thanks for letting me jump in there, because that's something I'm very passionate about too. I
couldn't agree more. Honestly, I think it's in their favor because, I mean, not only are they going to get some kind of incentive, but they should be getting a massive incentive in the form of bonuses or preferred pricing. But their psychology shifts now. They're like pulling the value towards them. Like, I just invested $20,000. I'm going to be showing up as much as I possibly can to get the value and create the value for myself, because it's a sunk cost at that point, right? I'm in it. I know that the more I pay for something, the more I value it, and the more likely I am to show up to get the value that I paid for. That's just, me personally.
I think that's a lot of people. So while we're talking about hallmarks of people who succeed and don't, I want to ask you a question from 2 points of view. you've seen a lot of attendees come through over the years, and I'm sure you've worked with people, through a longer term relationship. What is the biggest difference between people who will take the information and succeed and those who won't? And then my second one is, what's the biggest difference between event hosts who put on a really impactful event and make a lot of sales and those who don't?
Yeah, so 2 questions. What's the difference between people that take the information and apply it and don't? And then what's the difference? What's the second one?
The effective event host who puts on an impactful, profitable event, and the event host who doesn't.
Perfect. I have a response for both of those. Okay, the first response here is the difference between someone who uses the information and doesn't. Well, I'll be the first to admit that I don't use all the information that I get. All right. And I ask myself, why do I not use that information? Why is it that I know to do the certain sometimes and I just don't do it? Why does that happen? Right. So I want to reflect on that. The conclusion I come to for myself is, how does that thing occur to me? All right. Like the thing that I'm relating to, is it occur as something that is doable? Something that I want to do? Do I see the value in? Do I associate enough benefit in doing it? And do I believe I can do it? And ultimately, how am I associating what's valuable to me, which is different than what's valuable to you, Jase, right? It's how do I connect with my values to that thing? So if there's a disassociation for me from like, hey, I'm getting information, I know what to do, but I'm still not doing it, it's probably some disconnect between my values and the way the thing occurs to me. So what helps me is to like really assess, one, what's important to me, and then link up how that thing, whatever that thing is, how that's going to help me get the thing that's important to me, or how it's going to help me avoid losing the thing that's important to me, which is probably more motivating than first, right? Without pain, there's no change, as they say.
Absolutely. So what about the event host? What's the biggest difference you see between the two?
So a highly impactful and profitable live event. Well, it's interesting to say that because that's actually the focus of my podcast. Is called the High Profit Event Show.
Yeah, actually, please give that name out. We can put it in the chat too. You guys, I was on Rudy's show. It was awesome. He's had some great guests on there. Some friends of mine. It's funny. I went through listening to your show before I came on. I was like, oh, those are buddies of mine. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's called the High Profit Event Show, and specifically have been interviewing experts asking that very question: how to go about having a highly impactful and profitable live event. So what are the best practices when it comes to that? So I have over 100 interviews, A-list experts like yourself, several of your friends, asking that very question. So to answer your question, as far as like, what's the difference that I see? I think kind of cuts back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation around some people really care about making a difference for people, and some people are just focused on the dollars. And it's interesting because I think money is important. I'm not saying money's not important. It matters in the matters in which it matters, and it doesn't matter in the matters it doesn't matter. And that's a quote out of Secret to the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And it's one of those things that the more you chase it, the more it eludes you, kind of like women.
Say it again?
It's just one of those things that the more you chase it, the more it eludes you, kind of like women. It's a joke. But
no, it's true. And commission breath. When I was a realtor, they talked about commission breath and PPRA. People pursued, run away.
Exactly. Right. So when we're focusing on the money and how I'm going to get more money, how am I going to extract value, that results in one experience. But when the focus is on creating value, like what are the problems that people have at my event? And by the way, one of the things that we do in our process is we interview attendees in advance of the event to literally ask them just a week's prior, what's top of mind problem for them right there and then, so we can actually speak to where they're at. And if we can actually create value for them and focus on, hey, how do we create more value for our people here? How do we get them the result they're looking for? Help them make the shift we're looking for? Ultimately, people realize that you actually do care about them, right? And people don't care. It's kind of a cliche leadership tagline that people don't care what you know until they know you care about them. Right?
Yeah.
So really leaving people with the feeling that you care about them because you actually need to care about them. And also delivering
concept.
Yeah, delivering the promise, delivering the value. And people can really tune into the intention. It's one thing. I led a high-level mastermind earlier this year, and I charged a premium for it to attend, and I debriefed a couple of the attendees afterwards, and I got some constructive feedback on a couple points. And at the end of it, it was like, but I could really feel your intention of like you delivering the best world-class event you possibly could. And because of that, like the points that they made were just trivial. What mattered most to them is they felt my intention. Right? They really put my all to them. And that goes way beyond even mistakes that we could be making, right, at the event. It's, people tune into the intention and they'll forgive the small things. What's the difference? I would say it starts with intention, starts with desire to serve, and then the money ends up being a trailing indicator. Right? How well do we serve them and how well do we meet their needs versus, how well do we meet our own needs by doing what we want to do, et cetera. So I think that's my synopsis of it, and very short. Obviously, I have so many great interviews like yours on the show, very specific strategies that people use to fill their events, to engage at their events, speak from stage, sell their high-ticket programs. It's a great resource for any event leaders that want to learn more about that topic.
That's awesome. Please say the name again and then text me the link to the show so I give it to, we'll put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so High Profit Event Show. High Profit Event Show. I'll send you the link you included with the show. Just check out the show, follow us on there. And if you're an event leader and you want to chat more about getting some support in the back of the room, just reach out to Jase and he's happy to, maybe he'll introduce you to me. I'm not sure yet.
I'm happy to. Actually, unless you don't want to give it out now, that was going to be my next question. Like, who is, because I'm sure there's people listening who are like, okay, I'm ready to do events. Or are new people, or are you working more with people who are already doing events? Like, who is your ideal client and how can they get in touch with you? Or do you just want referrals, private referrals?
I typically work private referrals.
Okay.
But that being said, I will share here that I normally work with someone who's been in business for 3 or more years, has a proven program, mastermind program, and I mean proven defined as it's been around. You enroll people in it. You have people that have completed your program. You have testimonials. It's not something that you invented in the trunk of your car the night before the event.
That's so funny. I was just telling my clients the other day, we have a lot of newbies in this one cohort, and I'm like, your job is to collect testimonials right now. So, yeah.
And has done an event before that's had 50 or more people, right? So, because the problem that we saw really begins when somebody starts to have, I would say at least 30 people, but we aim for 50 or more. Ideally, I mean, we've handled rooms of up to 1,000 people. We've been able to facilitate, like 800 one-on-one sessions over the course of 3 days. It's
wow.
Military training, right? We learn logistics. We learn how to handle all of those details and mechanics, and that's something you just can't do without a professional team, in my humble opinion. So
that's amazing. Rudy, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It's like, I think you and I could geek out on events for hours. Actually, I would really dig that. So let's continue this on a future podcast or offline, man. Any final thoughts for everybody?
So your audience, final thoughts. I asked the same question on my podcast, so I was like, how do I answer this? What matters? What matters? Well, 2 things. One, and I'm going off of what you sent me in advance for this was, what am I reading now and that sort of thing. So much. So I just finished a book. I was on a 15-hour flight, and I was like 20 some hours in total, but one leg was 15 hours back from Nairobi. And I listened to a book called Going Infinite. It tells the story of the guy who started the FTX exchange. Something Fryman, I think it is, Bankman Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
And the author is a phenomenal author, the guy who wrote this biography. And it's such a fascinating story of the guy who, by several accounts, effectively holds a record for being the wealthiest person in the history of mankind under the age of 30, and the most wealth generated in the shortest period of time, even more than Mark Zuckerberg. But it was a rise and a fall, right? So it was like at one point, and we don't know this, we didn't know this in the moment, but looking back, you know, it's probably worth like $150 billion over the course of like 3 years, like went from 0 to 150 billion. It's just a fascinating like study of this guy who nobody really knew who he was. Like he was just, but he became like overnight super interesting, super popular. Like he was having calls with like heads of states, and Tom Brady, the football player, like invested in him. Like it was all sorts of like just crazy things that were going on. And he's now serving a 25-year prison sentence. But it's an interesting book because his author had like an inside view on this guy that nobody really knew who he was. He was just like this weird kid who managed to, you know, raise $150 billion. So why do I bring this up? Because it's what I was listening to recently, and it's just interesting study of like human behavior and human psychology, right? It's like study what you want to learn. I mean, you don't have to obviously go and, you know, create a crypto exchange and scam people or that sort of thing. I don't think his intention was to scam people, but he had really bad business practices. But I thought it was really interesting. Anyways, I'm going to pause with that. I have so many things I'd love to talk about, but I found that to be a really interesting read. It came highly recommended from several reputable people, so I finally listened to it, and I thought I'd share it with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rudy. Dude, it's so great to have you on, man. We'll catch you soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks for joining me today on To the Promised Land podcast. If you're ready to grow your impact, master your message, and become the kind of speaker people can't ignore, head on over to our website, tothepromisedlandpodcast.com. That's where the real transformation begins. The links are all in the description.